have made my way to Medellin, Colombia, although at the moment I'm far above the city at a place called Park RV. It is crazy to think that at one time, not that long ago, Medellin was considered the most dangerous city in the world. I am fortunate to be spending several weeks here discovering what this place is like after a remarkable transformation. Today I'll hit some of the highlights. These are the things people will want to see right at the beginning of a visit. There are some other elements and areas of the city that deserve their own videos, and I'll get to those in the coming weeks. For now though, here's your first look at Medellin. Medellin is a big city. Its population in 2020 was over 2.5 million people. The entire metro area, which includes much of what is called the Abura Valley, is nearly 4 million. Altogether, it is the second largest urban center in Colombia after Bogota. Medellin has changed dramatically since the days when the drug cartels were dominant. Some areas are modern and thriving economically. Other parts are densely populated and struggling to become more prosperous. The center of the city? I'll let Dio, who led a tour that I took, describe the center.
It is very, very dirty, noisy, crowded. It is freaking smelly as well. And on top of all those amazing things, it is a place where you need to take more care of your personal belongings.
The heart of the city is crowded, but also full of life. At some busy intersections, when the light turns red, entertainers jump into action. So much fun, and I'm sure it makes the commute and being stuck in traffic a little more tolerable. Even though the city center is not the best part of town, there are things to see there.
This city has always been known for being a city of contrasts in many ways. Here, for instance, one of the dodgiest areas of the city center, behind this building the same, to the right the same, and in front of all the sketchy stuff, the most touristic square in the city center.
The biggest tourist attraction is Plaza Tero. It is filled with sculptures from one of the most famous and popular artists in all of Latin America.
Fernando Botero, born and raised in Medellin, and that's the reason why we got all these sculptures for free.
Botero started his art career as a painter, but at some point began creating his signature sculptures. His style was to depict people, animals, and other figures using exaggerated dimensions and proportions that were often not realistic. His work is now on display in museums and other locations all around the world. Plaza Tero is home to almost 24 pieces, and the square attracts hundreds of people every day.
The guy told the government here, hey, as I am from Medellin, I'm going to give you 23 sculptures absolutely for free. But only if you put every single one of them in a place where anybody can see them.
Botero died at the age of 91 in September of 2023. He will be remembered here and elsewhere through the distinctive artwork he left behind. A long-standing art installation helped Medellin reclaim a plaza not too far from where Botero's sculptures are on display. This is the Parque de las Luces, or Park of Lights. The main features here are 300 pillars of various heights clustered together like a forest of trees. The tallest rise to a height of 24 meters, or almost 80 feet. This was once the main market area for the city, but when the market was relocated, the square became infested with criminals. In 2005, however, that activity was pushed aside. The concrete and metal pillars were installed, with each containing illumination from within. Fountains and stands of bamboo were also added to enhance the beauty of the area. New and renovated buildings, including a library and structures used by the education system, also made this their home. The place was rejuvenated and now is a site to visit instead of a place to be avoided. I was told that the lights were being replaced during my time in Medellin, so I did not get to see the park at its best. There was a display of photos on the side of the park nearest the library. They were images from countries throughout Latin America. It includes some nice shots, and Colombia was quite well represented. I've no idea how much longer this collection will be in place. There was every indication that it was just there on a temporary basis. There is a magnificently large piece of art situated in the midst of several administrative buildings in the center of the city. It is called Monumento a la Raza. Raza is translated as race. The work weighs 900 metric tons and rises 125 feet into the sky. It is said to represent the people of Antioquia, which is the department where Medellin is located. A department is a regional area, much like what we call a state in the U.S. The curved structure symbolically provides a view of the roots of the people of Antioquia and what they have gone through over the years. Agriculture, the railroad, and other cultural elements are depicted in the bronze features that cover the concrete base. It is a thoroughly impressive creation. Nearby, an old train station is preserved to give the railroad more recognition for what it meant to the growth of Medellin. A train engine sits on tracks just outside of the station. It took decades to build the Antioquia Railroad through the surrounding Andes Mountains. Once completed, it provided a vital link to the rest of the country for Medellin. One of the more attractive buildings in the main part of the city was once the Palace of Justice. It is now a shopping center. The architecture here is spectacular. Simply wandering through the 5-story building is a great way to spend 10 or 15 minutes. Shops filled the lower floors, but I found an unexpected treat on the 4th and 5th floors. Those levels were filled with art galleries and shops. Some of the work was stunning. Outside of that building were blocks and blocks of shops in what appeared to be one of the main market areas of the city. It was crowded and quite hectic.
Everything over here is very, very cheap. And guys, if you don't find what you are looking for in this whole neighborhood, it doesn't exist.
Dio might be right. There were countless different stalls selling everything from electronics to clothing. Walking through with all the sights and the sounds and the smells, it created a bit of sensory overload. There is no shortage of companies offering tours in Medellin. Those include the basic free walking tours of downtown, as well as trips to various parts of the city, and then day trips beyond that.
Welcome to Real City Tours. Thank you very much for being here today.
I was very pleased with the experience that I got during about 3 hours with Real City Tours. It was informative, enjoyable, and thought-provoking. I've said it before, a free walking tour is probably the best way to begin a visit to any major city. Do not forget to tip your guide. My tour ended at Plaza San Antonio. This is where a bomb was placed inside a Botero's sculpture, the Bird of Peace, in June of 1995. The explosion killed 23 people and injured another 200. Officials wanted to remove the twisted metal, but the artist demanded that it stay in place as a reminder of what happened and the violence that plagued his country. He donated a new replica to sit beside the damaged original. This is now a site where it is possible to reflect on Medellin's dark past and acknowledge the way the city has recovered from that.
The most surprising thing for everybody in this city, guys, is that despite the bad reputation we have all over the world, today you decided to come and visit us. You're the ones that are going to tell the world that Medellin is a different city today. That is not the violent city we had in the past.
At the edge of Plaza San Antonio, there is some street art that adds even a little more to the atmosphere. Most of the murals that I've seen in the city carry themes of hope, or at least exist to provide color and beauty. Time now to exit the center of the city. The first stop is Pito Paisa. This is a full-size replica of the type of town that would have been found in the late 19th and early 20th centuries in the department of Antioquia. It has a central square and a small white Catholic church that sits at one end. The Pueblito was first opened back in the late 1970s, but it was renovated just within the past several years. It is a nice way to get a feel for what small villages in this part of the country were like in the past. I would guess that many small towns still look much like this today, complete with the vibrant colors seen here. Of course, there are tourist elements within the attraction, including the Medellin letters, where you can craft your social media images. Shops also sell souvenirs and there are quite a few spots to grab something to eat. It is free to enter the Pito Paisa. There is a small charge to access the Museum of the City. I found this place to be interesting, even though it consisted almost exclusively of historic photographs of an earlier time. Those photos were grouped according to subject, such as transportation, tourism, and so forth. There is one other cool feature. This is a 3D depiction of the entire Abura Valley. It is fascinating to see this representation. You get a perspective that is impossible to gather when you are in the midst of the city, even when you are high on one of the hills. Pito Paisa is situated on a hill that is south of the Laureles neighborhood and north of Poblado. The hill is called Cerro Nutabara. There are some decent views of the surrounding comunas and neighborhoods from the top. The hill provides a vast natural environment right in the geographical center of the valley. Most people ascend and descend via pathways alongside the road to the top. There are, however, various trails and series of steps that will get you there and back as well. One of those is a sculpture trail that contains pieces from almost a dozen different artists. It's always a pleasure seeing artistic elements nestled within a natural environment. Not a great distance away from the hill and across the Medellin River is the Museum of Modern Art. The museum is enclosed within a special building which has a very artistic feel all its own. It was created back in the 1970s by a collective of creators intent on pushing the boundaries of art in the city. There is a fair amount of space that is devoted to constantly changing exhibits. In fact, when I visited, several of the galleries were closed so that the artwork could be updated. I'll admit that at times I don't really get modern art. Even so, I did find plenty to keep my attention within the museum. Admission here was just a little over $3. That is all south of the city center. To the north is a space that I would consider a phenomenal oasis within the urban atmosphere. This is the Botanical Garden of Medellin. There are more than 30 acres of green space here with all sorts of plants and an exceptional amount of fresh air. From the middle, it doesn't seem like you are anywhere near a major metropolitan area. There are thousands of trees, tons of flowering plants, and around 140 species of birds. There are also iguanas, but I only saw 2, and they hardly moved while I was there. This was my favorite part of the garden. This pavilion includes 10 wooden tree-like structures that combine to form a mesh canopy. That is designed to catch rainwater and provide protection for a number of species of orchids. That canopy tops out at a height of 65 feet. On a Saturday morning, it also presented the perfect place for a group yoga session. It costs nothing to visit the Botanical Garden, but it is necessary to register your presence, so don't forget your passport. A much bigger natural area lies even farther to the north. Park RV is easy to reach using public transportation. The final 5 kilometers is covered by a cable car, which takes 15 to 20 minutes. This is simply incredible. You leave a very densely populated part of Medellin, you get in the cable car, you come up the hill, and in just a matter of moments, you are surrounded by wilderness. There's not a house as far as I can see, nothing but trees, mountains in the distance. It is absolutely phenomenal. Upon reaching the park, you were surrounded by nature. One disappointing aspect for me, though, was that it was necessary to pay for a guide if you wanted to hike over some of the trails. I chose not to do that, but I reserved the right to reconsider at some point later. There were a few things to see if hiking was not part of the visit. It did not cost anything to simply come to this part of the park. One neat feature was a little market right at the entrance.
Hola.
There you could find crafts, souvenirs, and some items to eat and drink. While my preference would have been to hike once I got there, and I was sorry that I didn't get to do so, the trip was still worth it because of the cable car ride to and from. I have to say that the public transportation system in Medellin is exceptional. It is inexpensive and safe. There are 2 metro lines, one that goes north-south and another that travels east-west. This is the only metro in Colombia, and that is a huge source of pride for locals. Because of that, riders treat the cars with a tremendous amount of respect. There's no graffiti, not even any trash. The same card that you get for riding the metro also works on many buses, trams, and cable cars, or the metro cable. Those metro cable lines generally take you up and out of the valley. It allows you to reach comunas and barrios that are on the outskirts of the city. More importantly, it gives residents of those places easy access to the rest of the valley. One of my favorite parts of the city is Parque del Rio Medellin, or the Medellin River Park. This is a linear park that covers both banks of the river for a short distance. 2 bridges cross the waterway. Walking or jogging the loop that includes the 2 bridges covers a little less than a half mile. This is one of the first places I found when I began exploring the city. It is also sort of the base for me every morning when I go out for a walk. While the park is small, it contains a lot. In addition to the paths for exercise, there are numerous spots to relax. It also includes specialized pieces of equipment where you can have fun or challenge yourself. That's not even mentioning how gorgeous some of the little locations are within the park. Looking north or south from either of the bridges also gives splendid views of the city. It's no surprise that people always fill the space. So far, I would have to call myself impressed. For a place with such a grim history, Medellin seems to be doing rather well. I would have to say that parts of the city center are still gritty, but with lots of green space and modern construction elsewhere, the outlook moving forward is positive. I'll stay right here over the next several weeks. That will include further exploration of the city and some of its neighborhoods, plus a day trip to an amazing area of natural beauty that is not so far away. It'll all be right here on Old, Alone, and Far From Home.